Hi, I am Gianna, the pet engineer. This is a radio talk show dedicated to help people to construct a better connection with their pets. To listen to our show, you can visit us at petengineer.com. Also, check my new book, Numerology for Pets, at amazon.com. Today, I have Karen Schwartz, who is the President and Assistant Director of Training for Tender Loving Canines Assistance Dogs Incorporated. They are specialized in training service dogs for those with limited abilities. Some of their programs are for children with autism and for wounded warriors. If you want to know more about their work, visit their website at www.tenderlovingcanines.org. Once again, tenderlovingcanines.org. Karen, can you give us a little history on Tender Loving Canine Assistant Dogs program?
Yes, this program started in 1998 as a small, nonprofit, all-volunteer organization to train service dogs for those individuals who wanted to better their lives and be more independent. So we have trained dogs for mobility, working with a wheelchair or balance, signal dogs, which are people for hard of hearing or deaf, seizure response dogs, as well as specialty dogs, for example, those with Tourette syndrome or a child with cerebral palsy. But we now specialize in training dogs for two main focus programs. One is called Leash on Life, which is dogs for individuals on the autism spectrum, and At Ease, our Wounded Warrior program. We train all puppies. We get them usually around 8 weeks of age, and we train them for approximately 2 years. We do 18 months of foundation training, and after that we can see what job the dog would be good at, and then we interview applicants for this type of dog. We try to match the dog to a client depending on their needs and the dog's skills and strengths. And we match the personality of the dog and the client as well, because we want this placement to be a success. For that reason, we do not have a waiting list. So the next 5 dogs ready to be placed do not necessarily go to the next 5 clients. The last 4 to 6 months, once we match the dog with a client or recipient, is specialized training with that recipient dog team to learn the custom cues for that individual's needs. And lastly, we place the dog at no cost to the clients.
Karen, can you tell me more about your Wounded Warriors program?
Yes, we had placed 2 service dogs with 2 veterans who were medically discharged from the military. These were very successful placements. So we then contacted the Wounded Warrior Battalion West at Camp Pendleton, California, which is located very close to our facilities. And it houses 200 wounded warriors that are newly returned from deployment, about starting a program there. So 6 months later, after establishing the proper military protocol with the Marine Corps, in March 2011, we were on the base with our first dogs ready to start. So in the last 4 months, we have placed 4 dogs on base with the men and women living in the Wounded Warrior Battalion. These applicants all have their very individual needs as well, from post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly called PTSD, traumatic brain injury, or TBI, and also mobility issues, from amputations and severe injuries, and some needing seizure response dogs as well. Both the autism program that we do and the Wounded Warrior program encompass individuals with triggers that cause sensory overload in many forms and result in the individual not being able to function in certain situations. These triggers might be the smell of a barbecue, the smell of lube oil, the helicopter noise, crowds. There are many, many triggers that have come into their life as a result of their deployment. The tools taught to the wounded warrior for using the dog to alleviate these overloads needs to be addressed for each unique applicant and practiced with gradual progression so they can overcome these roadblocks as effectively as possible. So we start by working on the base near their barracks or, where they're living so they're comfortable. Then we might take them to the commissary or other stores on base. And when the wounded warrior works up to progressing going off base, say to a mall, the picture changes and they feel a whole lot more vulnerable. This, too, needs to be worked through, or they will continue to not go out in public. Say you place a dog with them and they go home, they still aren't going to take an active part in their public life, the life that they can't do right now. So these placements can be slower and much more intense than other service dog placements that we have experienced. And again, this can't be accomplished in just giving them a dog and working with them for 5 days and they take the dog home. Our goal is to teach them how to mitigate their hypervigilance and their physiological reactivity to a situation, something they have little control of right after they come back. This immediate reaction is what kept them alive in the war zone, but they need to learn how to use the dog in this situation once they're home, because the anger will decrease, the impatience and other symptoms that are not acceptable in a public setting on the home front need to decrease greatly if they are going to be accepted properly in society. Something we found as simple as them not being able to tolerate standing in a line when someone in front of them is taking too long to find their money. Can be turned into a game with their dog, where otherwise they're yelling at the person in front and swearing at them because they just can't handle it. So we've taught them to think, Duke, isn't he an idiot? He can't even find his money. And then he cues Duke to give him a high five on cue, and then he can smile at his dog and tolerate the aggravation and wait a little longer in line.
Oh, wow.
And lastly, only he and Duke know what he's thinking, so he can be thinking whatever he wants, and it's acceptable. But we sit back and we watch things like this to figure out, okay, how can we teach him to handle this? And then, lastly, he can go to the movie or do things that he right now can't do.
Well, I bet it's more difficult dealing with wounded warriors than, for example, the autism people or handicapped people, because you know exactly what their handicapping is. But with post-traumatic disorders, it's much harder.
Well, and you don't know when something's going to stimulate or trigger. Exactly. And you don't know to what level.
But how has been the response by veteran organization programs, Karen?
The Wounded Warrior Battalion has accepted the placements we've done there with open arms, and we now have, in 4 months, 35 applicants for just that program from that base. The need is very great, and the invisible wounds are now recognized as needing assistance by both the military and the public. It used to be they wouldn't report if they couldn't handle a situation because that made the soldier look weak, so he wouldn't do it. It's now okay to need help in these areas, and it's very evident that a service dog is able to give a big part of these soldiers' lives back, because we've seen it in very short time spans. Other veteran organizations have offered us assistance as well, such as there's one here in San Diego called Freedom is Not Free, who will assist with emergency veterinary care for a placed service dog with a wounded warrior when needed. These are the expenses they really are unable to handle. And the Wounded Warrior themselves can also apply for financial assistance themselves to groups like the Semper Fi Fund, since most will be discharged without employment at first. And this is a very difficult area for them because they want to be the breadwinner of their family and the leader. And it's very hard for them to do, lastly, when there's no job and they don't know if they can even handle the job scene right off the bat. This is a difficult transition for us to make with them as well, because they aren't going to all stay in our area. They're going to go back to their home state, and which may mean traveling time for us now and then to help with that transition. But it's being accepted with very open arms because it does help. We've been able to accomplish more with certain wounded warriors than their psychologists and psychiatrists have been able to do.
I bet.
Which is amazing.
I bet.
Yeah.
Is there any interesting story you would like to share with us?
Yes, there's one that I have personally witnessed, a service dog giving a wounded warrior her life back. I interviewed an injured Army captain, myself, along with our director of trainer, and she applied to us for a dog. So she reached out to us, but she had very great difficulty allowing us into her home on the first interview even. Her home was her safe haven at that time. Outside her home was not at all. She had a leg injury and severe PTSD. She was going to be discharged from the military, something she did not want to take place at all. She loved the military. She was a captain over 200 men and women under her. She did not want to give that up. She only felt safe going to her medical appointments on the base. Otherwise, she did her marketing at midnight when no one else would be in the store, and she remained in her house the rest of the time. After 6 months, she was able to go to a mall and use the tools that she was shown and practice with her trainer and dog, and was able to attend a sellout Charger football game. And for the holidays, she flew back east by herself with her dog. These were absolutely major accomplishments. Her dog turns the lights on when she comes home to a darkened house. It has to go up 3 levels of stairs. It refocuses her after a nightmare at night because her dog wasn't in the theater in the war zone. So she realizes she's here now, where before she wouldn't move because she wasn't convinced there wasn't someone else in her house. Her dog leans into her when she just taps her leg. When she feels her anxiety escalating, she taps her leg and the dog leans its head into her and she de-escalates. The dog watches her back when in public. And does retrieval work for her. She recently had a setback where she had to have her foot amputated after many surgeries since the pain would not go away. So she elected to go that route. She now is looking forward to getting a new prosthetic foot and starting sports again and having her life back. She even had a going away party for her foot with her friends. But more importantly, her dog has given her a reason to live. Suicide is no longer a consideration, and there is no better gift.
What is about dogs and people, do you think it's because it's kind of unconditional love that the dog, and unconditional attention as well, the dog give us?
I think it's that, but the dog is also not judgmental. He doesn't tell the child, say with autism, that they're different or they're weird. He doesn't understand maybe the fears that a wounded warrior is going through. And, like everyone will say their dog knows when they're sick or when something's wrong. They really do pick up on things like that. And if you give the dog something to do in that situation, they will work to please you and do what you have taught them to do. That's why this works so well. So the dog will pick up when there's, say the wounded warrior is waiting for a medical appointment and then the lobby's starting to get really crowded. They almost can't handle sitting there. The dog will walk over, just rest their chin on your lap and look at you like, okay, I know you're getting all revved up, but it's okay. This is not a big deal. It's okay. You can do this. And they realize they can do this. It's just simple things like that that make it a successful journey for them when they thought they couldn't even walk into that room before or go to that appointment. It just seems to work. There's just no set reason, but it works. And we see it work many times over.
Well,
I joined this group about 8 years ago, and I love what I do, but there's so much more to be done. I mean, it almost drives you crazy, knowing that if we could put more dogs out there that are well-trained, that would help these people, or for us to be able to maybe help other organizations do this type of training, it would be a monster gift to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. The benefit, wow, I'm moved. I'm really moved. Karen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me share my life.
Absolutely.
To listen to our shows, visit us at www.thepetengineer.com. Oh, don't forget to check my new book at www.numerologyforpets.com.